Dr. Geneva, and welcome once again to the Michigan Women's Forward annual dinner, Woman Up and Celebrate, and their first ever podcast on site, live, being brought to you, Influence Podcast. You know, it's been a pleasure talking to the leadership of the dinner, and guess who I have with me? Lori Lancaster, a co-chair of tonight's fabulous event, where over 800 women will gather and celebrate the success of Michigan Women's Forward. Not Foundation, but Michigan Women's Forward. How you doing, Lori?
I'm great. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you so much for spending some time, and tell us all about Lori.
Oh, all about Lori.
Yes.
That's a long story, but we'll give you the abridged version.
Okay,
so I work for the Rush Group of companies. That was started by my sister, Andra Rush. She started with a trucking company, Rush Trucking, 35 years ago. This is our anniversary. So she started that company and grew that to some level of success, and that success offered her the opportunity to start another company, Dakota Integrated Systems, which is a automotive supplier. We do interiors, exteriors, sequencing, and warehousing. And from that, she started a third business, Detroit Manufacturing System. She started that in 2012. We divested of that company last year, but when she had started that company in 2012, as you can imagine, she was very busy. At that point, I was a nurse out in Boston at Mass General in critical care. So my son, my oldest, had started school back here in Michigan, so that brought me, back home. And at that point in my career, I was looking to make a change, thinking about anesthesia school, and making a big change. And my sister, who's a very good salesperson, as you can imagine, said, if you're looking to make a change, why don't you come back home and work for me? And it's like, well, I don't know anything about, automotive and your business and all that. And she's like, nursing prepares you for everything. It's the critical thinking.
Yes.
She's like, you will learn what you need to learn.
Right.
She's like, as I look forward to succession planning, I need somebody who shares my values that I can trust.
Right.
And she's like, you're 10 years younger than me, so come do that. And, at that point in my life, it sounded like it was a time to come back home near family. As, your children start to leave, you start to look at your future. So that's kind of how I came back to Michigan and to work for the Rush Group of companies and get, introduced to, people like Carolyn and groups, great organizations like Michigan Women Forward, and support
That's a wonderful, wonderful story, from nurse to vice president of Rush Group, one of the best growing companies in women-owned, certainly in Michigan and the country.
Yes, and we're Native Americans, so we're very proud of our heritage. So, we have...
How beautiful, how wonderful, how magnificent for all young women to look at you and your sister and what you've done. And that's kind of brings us to Michigan Women's Forward. And so how'd you get connected with this organization, and why Michigan Women Forward?
Well, I got connected through this. My sister has been a longtime supporter, Andra, and she always said, the power of 100 women, and this is a great organization. So I came to my first event probably 5 years ago.
Okay.
And, it is super magnificent what they do and how they empower women. And, we all need those positive role models in our life. I spoke about my sister and how, she started as a nurse too. And she went to, so I
didn't know that. Both of you started as nurses.
It's crazy. It's like, you have all that rivalry as children. And, when I reflect back, it's like, I followed in your footsteps. You went to Michigan, I went to Michigan, you studied nursing, I did. Now here I am working for her. But so it's those influential role models, that she was being when she wasn't even knowing she was being one. And I think everyone needs that. Women need that. And this is a great organization that empowers women. I love their microloan program. They look at the social issues of women. They look at women in business, and they really do what they can to empower women. and move them forward.
Yes. And that is such a, as you talk about your journey and your sister's journey, it's such a wonderful story, and it gets me to wondering about, what do you think women, as you've come through that journey, what do you think women should do for other women? How can they help other women? You certainly had your sister who was a role model. Are there other ways that women can help women come through their journeys?
Well, I think, acting as that mentor is helpful. I think, as women, sometimes I know personally, I want to, maybe not always point out the hard stuff.
Okay.
So sometimes as you're mentoring, maybe you see something that would, benefit that person, but it might be a difficult discussion. I think as women, we owe it to other women to say, hey, here's what I think you can do. This might be not easy for you to hear right now, but as I observe and reflect, I think, these are the steps you could take to really, enhance your position, move to the next level. And I think those are difficult conversations, and we can't be afraid as women to have those to help, bring others forward.
Yeah, I think you're right, because it's those difficult decisions that helps us to learn and to grow.
Right.
And so women having those discussions and conversations really helps others.
Right. And I think sometimes we're brought up not to have those.
Right. Yes.
To be polite.
Well, tell me, so there's probably a number of organizations that you're familiar with that you could be a part of. What's so special about Michigan Women's Forward? Why are you a part of this organization and agree to co-chair the dinner?
Well, I think this organization, like I said, I support the programs that they do. We support, financially a lot of different groups, but this one is very, open. They're very willing to listen and engage and get others' ideas, and I think it makes it easy to be a part of an organization like this.
Yes.
You can be proud of what they do, and they're really open to listening to people out in the community, people in the workforce, and their ideas, and really helping them to feel a part of it.
As a Native American role model, are there challenges that are particularly unique to Native American women that you found in your journey and your career?
I think the Native American culture is especially the women that, maybe come from even the reservation, they're brought up with different social norms. It's very difficult for Native American men and women to look somebody in the eye, because that's not, to them
Part of the culture.
Right. It's, you have to be very respectful, so it's a different way. So in business, that doesn't go over very well. Right. Think you're not being truthful.
That's right.
So they have those kind of, cultural things that they have to be able to overcome. And so that's a challenge. Being in an impoverished area, it's hard for anyone, Native American or any group, to get ahead and to have the role models that stay on the reservation or come back and do work. So it is very difficult, and there's also sometimes a level of mistrust, for natives who grow up, in that kind of environment where they feel like they aren't a part of other things, to have that trust to venture out.
So do you see yourself as a role model? Now I do, but I'm the interviewer, so I'm supposed to ask the questions. But do you see yourself as a role model? And what's the most inspirational thing that you find being a role model? I'm going to assume you're going to say yes, I'm a role model.
Well, it'd be easy to say no, right? I think everyone's a role model. I think
Okay.
people are always
Right.
watching you when you don't know that
Okay.
they are, and
All
so
right.
you always have to remember that and to put your best self forward. As a mother, you strive to be a role model for your
Yes,
children. So of
absolutely.
course I'm a role model in that way. But to think of myself as a role model in business, that's something I'm growing into, because I'll never feel like I'm, at the level of my sister, who's been in it for 35 years. So I feel like I'm always growing. But you're a role model at every stage of your life for everyone, going up. So it's a challenge.
And I think that you're right about role modeling at every phase, because there's something to learn
Right.
at every phase.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be that fabulous role model. And look at your leadership already as co-chairing this fabulous dinner.
I co-chaired last year as
Oh, you
well, as you
did?
probably
Oh, well,
know.
see.
Well, maybe not,
Well,
but this year's even bigger. So
See,
here you
that
go.
proves it right there. See what you're talking about. You are the role model. See, you did
They
it
invited
once.
us back.
That's right. You did it once. You're doing it again.
I know.
See
That's good.
how it happens. Well, we're just so delighted and thankful for your leadership. It's really been a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure
And-
talking to you. This is
and-
my first podcast.
Is it really?
It is.
Oh
I
my
didn't know
gosh.
what to expect.
Now,
so.
see, I wouldn't have known that because you handled it very well.
Oh, well, thank
And
you.
then we'll have to do this again.
Well, you make it easy.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.